We're extremely fortunate this month to welcome as our guest speaker the wonderful Deb Verla from the fantastic organization Field Team 6. Deb has been providing trainings for the last 3 years for people who want to get involved in social media to use it as a force for good. And whether you have never posted anything on a social media platform or you're a regular user of social media, she has insights, resources, and information to share with you today that I know will be very valuable. So please join me in welcoming Deb Verla. Go ahead, Deb.
No problem. I know we all have to click that little OK button. Thanks for inviting me. This is so fun. I'm a California resident, so I feel like you guys are close neighbors. But it's so important for all of us to work together. I'm a member of my Indivisible group up here, Indivisible Beach Cities. I also participate a little bit with Indivisible South Bay. We know that none of us can do this alone. So I just always think of this as all of us linking arms and, marching towards that election together, because it's way too big of a job for any one person, any one organization. And there's plenty enough for everybody to do. I always think if everybody just does one thing, if there's one thing that you like to do that, and that's how we're going to win. Anyway, if you're not familiar with Field Team 6, I have a presentation that I would love to show you, and I don't want to show you the whole thing. I just want to tell you a few facts because we just released our impact report last week. And I'm going to share my screen, pull this up for everybody. We don't always know who registers as a result of any particular event that we do, because we can't always measure that. Instead, what we do is we compare who registers in the different states around the country to the outreach that we've done through our database. We have a database of about 13 million names. These are all unregistered, likely Democrats. Few Republicans sneak in, but we try very hard to scope it out to be reaching out to Democrats. And we try and register them in a lot of different ways. So after an election, we compare our database to the files that we get from the state showing who did register. And then we can see who we helped register to vote. And it's incredibly rewarding once we get this information. And we're able to look at it. So of course, now we're looking back at the 2022 election cycle. And just a few things, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I don't want to bore everybody and I don't want to take the time to do this, but just a few things that I want to tell you. Back in the 2022 election cycle, we registered over 1.5 million new progressive voters. We call them blue and purple voters. Anybody who's not voting for a Republican will take claim to. Now, these people may have been reached by some other organizations too, but they're all people that we reached out to, whether it was by postcards, by phone banks, by text banks, by email, in-person voter drives, whatever it was, to help get them registered. So in our database of 13.2 million unregistered likely Democrats, back in the 2022 election cycle, we reached out to these people in whatever way we could, because the data that we buy doesn't always have methods to reach them. Not everybody has their address listed. Some people don't have their phone listed. Some people don't have their email listed. So we reach out to them in whatever way is possible. So we reached out to 5 million people during that cycle. And some of those people were touched multiple times. During that cycle, we sent 5.5 million texts. We sent almost 3 million emails, over 1 million postcards, and 150,000 phone calls. So we've got a lot of volunteers. Field Team 6 is a completely volunteer organization. We have 3 paid people, and the rest of our thousands of people are all volunteers, just like all of you. We are a partisan organization. We make no pretenses that we're trying to talk to Republicans. We work really hard on our messaging to make it persuasive, but also to be appealing to Democrats and to obviously not be appealing to Republicans. Anyway, we contacted 5 million people, and out of those people, almost 1 in 3 registered, which we feel great about. Compared to a lot of partisan organizations, that's really an incredible yield. We're really proud of the fact that we registered that many different people. But what we're even more proud of all those people that we registered, primarily in 8 states, but a little bit all over the country. Out of those people, how many actually voted? 2/3 of a million. Over 40% of the people that we registered voted. And you know, a lot of people talk about how young people don't vote. So if you're ever thinking about doing outreach to young people and then you think, well, I keep hearing that young people don't vote, the truth is young registered people vote. In this last cycle, they voted at a rate of 86%. So the secret is getting them registered. You know, there's a lot of really great organizations out there who work on getting out the vote. Our feeling is we can't get out the vote if they're not registered in the first place. So we put all our effort into getting those people registered. Because we're a volunteer organization, looking at how much we spent during that election cycle against the number of people that we actually registered, it cost us less than $1 to register each person. 93 cents it cost us to register a new Democrat. And of the people who then voted, it came down to $2.24 to register or to buy a voter, to get somebody out there voting. And we feel like when we get somebody registered to vote, we're really getting a lifelong voter. That's what we're looking to do, is get people to vote all year long. So enough of that presentation. I'm going to back out of that and jump into a different place. To me, one of the most important things that we can be doing over the next year is bragging about President Biden and what his whole administration is doing. I think that everybody would agree that he doesn't get a fair shake in the mainstream media. You know, and if they're not going to do it, it's really up to all of us as grassroots organizations to keep getting this word out. Just like Simon Rosenberg said last week, it's the grassroots organizations, all the activists who got out there and are getting these people elected. We had a phenomenal year last year, lots of small elections, but you know, we won so many as Democrats, and then we've won all the major ones so far this year. It just, to me, it's a great way of starting off this year with all these successes. I think it bodes really well. So don't get caught up in the polar coasters. Keep your eye on November and what we can accomplish. So anyway, to me, one of the main things we need to be doing is talking about Biden, talking about his successes. and just keeping that out in front of people's eyes. People talk about Biden's age and how he's too old to run for president. I decided to just start saying age is Biden's superpower, because it's experience, it's wisdom. And we need to turn it around and talk about it in more positive terms. And the more we do that, the more it might sink in. The Republicans are, I think, better organized and probably better funded. And they have a very sophisticated messaging apparatus out there. The Democrats don't seem to do that on a national organized scale. So again, it's up to the grassroots organizations. So let's ourselves keep getting that word out. One of the best things that you can do on social media, whether you're on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Threads or TikTok or any of them, they all use an algorithm. You don't see all of the posts of the people that you're following. You don't see posts from every single person, and you don't see all of their posts. Instead, all of the different social media platforms use an algorithm. And the more you engage with a post, the more that platform is going to share it with other people. So one of the best things you can do on social media, again, no matter what platform it is, when you see a post that you really agree with, don't just pass it by and nod your head. Instead, take 5 seconds and like it, leave a comment on it. If there's a way to share it, then go ahead and share it. Sometimes that's a little bit scarier thing to do on Facebook. I think that a lot of us on Facebook tend to use it as a more personal platform. Most of us got on Facebook to talk to our high school alumni friends, and the people that we grew up with that we're finally getting to reconnect with. And so it's sometimes a little bit more uncomfortable to really publicize much on Facebook, but there are a lot of groups on Facebook. We've paused our Facebook trainings for a little bit as we put together a new team that's going to just be joining groups all over Facebook and posting positive messaging. But again, one of the best things you can do on social media is like the post you see and leave a comment on it. If there's a way to share it, then share it. What that does is every time you engage with a post, that post rises in that platform's algorithm. And then whether it's Twitter or Instagram, anybody, then they will share it with more people. And that's a great way of amplifying the message. You talked earlier about multiplying your impact. This is a great way of multiplying the impact of other groups out there. Whether it's a Field Team 6 message or an Indivisible message or a Swing Left message, when you see a good message that you agree with, help to lift that message up so that more people will see it. And that's how social storms are created, by getting that message out in front of more people. Anyways, Wendy said, I do trainings every week. We do trainings on Twitter. We do a basic training and then a more advanced training. We do the same thing for Instagram, a real basic session on how to use Instagram, and then a more advanced session on how to use all the bells and whistles with Instagram. We now do a session on Threads. And although we have a TikTok account, we don't do training on it. We do posts. So when you see our stuff, go ahead and like it and comment on it. But we do the trainings. We try and keep them down to an hour, and we try and have fun. People come back. Next month, we're going to be celebrating our 3-year anniversary for doing these social storms. We've created a lot of noise out there. We figure on Twitter alone, we've created over 6 billion impressions. An impression means that our tweet was seen by a set of eyeballs. So 6 billion sets of eyeballs have seen our tweets over the last couple years. So talk about making noise. It works really well for us. We even see traffic to our website spike. You'll see that all our messaging is positive, and most of it is calls to action. So if you feel like you don't want to go on social media because you either aren't crazy about social media, or you wonder what kind of an effect it will be, or are you worried about the trolls? We like to think of it as singing with the choir, not preaching to the choir, because most of our messaging is calls to action. We're asking people to stop complaining about the state of the world and let's get out and do something about it. Let's be activists. We like to talk about being a 10-minute activist, where you can pull out your phone while you're sitting in the doctor's waiting room, or you're standing in the line waiting for your carryout. You can pull up Twitter on your phone, do a quick search, and you can amplify 30 or 40 messages while you're standing there in line. And it helps the bottom line. It helps get that message seen by more people. Okay, what you're looking at right now, I think I'm still sharing my screen, is the Field Team 6 website. And what we do in our training is show how to use our own library of ready-made posts to be able to send out onto any platform. And these are always available right on our website. When I come to the Field Team 6 website, it's fieldteam6.org. And I can drop some links into the chat in a few minutes. But right on our actions menu, there's an item right for social storms. And when I go to that, it opens up our library of ready-made social media posts, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. And let's just do Twitter because it's usually a little bit easier to show. Up comes our library. And I talk to people all the time who say, you know, I've never done much on Twitter. I've never joined a social storm because I just don't know what to say. I don't know how to put a tweet together. Well, the good news is we've already done all that for you so that you don't have to. We've already tried to use really strong messaging, good striking visuals that'll get people to pay attention to it. And they're really easy to send out. So each one of these rectangles is a complete ready-made tweet. Okay, the same thing. We've got the same posts available for Facebook and for Instagram. The process is very similar. And to tweet it out, all I do is click one button, a pop-up window magically appears and it shows me that whole tweet. Once I'm sure that I'm seeing it, I just click the post button, and then I see a message telling me your post was sent. That's all that's involved sending our tweets out. And I just want to mention with some of these, you can edit the text if you have a need to, and especially on Instagram and Facebook. One of the things that I like to encourage people to do is to tag their friends. So if you have colleagues that you do different kinds of activism with, or you're a member of an organization that has an account there, or maybe there's a hashtag that they use, you can put that into one of our tweets. And that means that other people that you collaborate with might see your tweet and help to amplify it. And especially when it gets close to an election, you can put a candidate's tag or handle name into one of these ready-made tweets, and it helps them get a little bit more exposure. Anybody searching for that candidate might see it, and it just helps everybody get a little bit more exposure and get that message out to more people. So we encourage people to do that. Put the tags into our ready-made tweets, because that will help other people see it. And you can just do it by adding their name. Sometimes, with Twitter, you've only got 280 characters. So sometimes you have to edit it a little bit and take a few words out. But we trust you to be able to do that and not lose the impact of our messaging. So one other thing I want to show you is we've divided all these ready-made tweets into different categories. So if there's certain issues that you're more passionate about, this is Black History Month. We always have lots in here to promote our different events. There's a category for gun safety, for pride. We're introducing a new category next month for climate control and that sort of thing. One for voter registration. We talk a lot about registration deadlines as we get close to those and publicize those. This past week was California's voter registration deadline. And although we're one of the lucky ones, we can register right up until election day at the poll itself. Registering online, you still have a deadline for that. And then there's categories for Spanish. Some of our posts are translated into Spanish. And then for volunteering and military. So whatever your passion is, there's probably something in here that you might want to tweet about, whatever it is. We also just introduced new t-shirts and sweatshirts last month that have a QR code on the back, and the QR code takes you to our voter registration portal website. So if you're ever trying to register Democrats, aren't we all the time? Somebody can just snap a picture of the back of your shirt and go to our registration portal and register to vote. How cool is that? So again, any of these, I can just click on the button. The pop-up window appears. As soon as I see my tweet in that window, all I need to do is click the post button, and well, I already sent that one out today. But the great thing is, if I already sent it out, all I need to do is add a space in here somewhere and I can send it again. So that's how easy our media storming is. In our sessions, in our weekly sessions, we talk about how to get more followers, how to get more engagement on your posts. We know some shortcuts to getting more followers on Twitter. I don't know that a lot of followers is necessarily important on Facebook. Every platform's a little bit different. But we talk about how to get more engagement. How do you get people to respond to your tweet so that it will get more airplay on that platform? So those are the kinds of things that we talk about in our trainings. And they're all available on the Mobilize website. Real easy to register for any of those, and they're on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So in the chat, I just put a whole bunch of links. The very last one in there has all 5 of the different social storm trainings that we're doing right now. You'll see the Mobilize page links for each one of those. And then we have links for our newsletter, for Field Team 6 itself. If you're not familiar with Blue Voter Guide, one thing about that real quick, Blue Voter Guide is a website that we introduced last year. It's bluevoterguide.org. When you go to that website in the month before your election, like we are right now in California, you can type in your address, and it doesn't keep your address. It just uses it to make your sample ballot. And then you can go through and see everybody that's running in your geographic area. And we have volunteers all over the country who are getting that information and getting all the endorsement organizations. So you can see who endorsed all the different Democrat candidates. Then you can go through, and it also includes the propositions and the judges. So you can go through and mark who you want to vote for. not only lets you vote for the blue candidates because it is a blue voter guide, but when you're done, you can save it. You can save the link, or you can save it as a PDF. And you know those people who call you the week before the election and say, who should I vote for? What are your recommendations? What do you think about this proposition? You can just send them the link to your recommendations and say, this is who I suggest you vote for. So it's a really easy way to not only do your homework, but also to help your friends figure out who they should vote for as well. It's only going to let you recommend Democrats, but I don't think any of you will have a problem with that. So I'm going to stop right there and pop back to the Zoom and see if we've got any questions. I haven't been paying any attention to the chat.
Well, I think so far, I don't see any questions so far in the chat, but let's open it up to people now who want to ask a question.
And we also do text banking. We'll do more text banking as we get closer to actual elections. Right now, we have two different kinds of text banking available. One is a paid text banking opportunity. If you make a $25 donation, you get 1,400 texts to send. And it doesn't pay for the whole thing, but texting is expensive and it helps defray some of the costs. And so we do that every Thursday. And then we have something that we call BYOP texting. It uses our phone banking platform. So it's clunky. It has a few things that you have to set up on your computer, and you have to do it with the computer. But the good thing is it's free. We don't have to pay for a texting platform to do it on. We don't have to fundraise every week to pay for it. But it is clunky. And we use Google Voice to send the texts out, and they limit how many texts you can send at a time. But that has been free. We've been trying to get 1,000 people to send text messages. Google usually lets us send about 100 texts a day. It doesn't seem like very many, but boy, it adds up. I have one person who told me she has sent over 10,000 texts since last summer. So yeah, it adds up over time. But we figure if we had 1,000 people doing this, we'd be sending 100,000 text messages every day. And we get through all 6 million names that we have in our database that have cell phone numbers attached to them in a 2-month period. And then we'd be able to text them again before the election in November. So that's another thing that we offer that not everybody loves because it is kind of clunky. But if you're comfortable with your computer and with tech, you might enjoy it.
So, Deb, one of the main reasons that I'm such a huge supporter of Field Team 6 is because our group and many other groups put a lot of effort into voter registration when we first got started in 2016, 2017. And what we soon realized is that even though it's wonderful to register more people to vote in San Diego, this is a blue county, and it didn't feel as impactful as it might. What Field Team 6 figured out how to do is to allow us to remotely register people to vote, people in swing states, people in purple states, people in red states. And that makes voter registration so much more impactful. And to be able to do it with all the different methods that you talked about, I think is also incredibly important. So really appreciate that way of getting in.
Yeah, we focus in on 11 states right now because we just simply don't have the resources to cover the entire country. So we focus in on the states where we think we can make a difference. States where they've got races, whether it's a House race, a Senate race, a governor race, races that we think we can flip from red to blue, or states where it's really critical, like Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Montana. There's some Senate races that we really need to keep that person in office. So we're focusing on those states where we think we can have the biggest impact. States like Florida that are certainly really important are such a stretch that we decided our resources would be better spent where we think we can more likely flip a race than spinning our wheels in some of these other states. We still do some stuff in Florida. We work with partners down there, and we do text banks into Florida, but it's not where we're focusing the majority of our efforts.
And just getting back to social media, can you give people an idea if they don't even have accounts yet and they're just starting out, is it too late to have an impact for the 2024?
Yeah, it really isn't. Threads is a brand new platform. I really like Threads. I think it's a much friendlier platform than pretty much anything else that's out there. And so everybody's kind of new on Threads right now. So we do talk in that training about how to create your account and how to get those first followers, and then how to start posting. But a lot of that is how to get started. On Instagram, a lot of us again started on Instagram talking to friends, and we were posting pictures of our dogs and our kids and whatever, certainly not political messages 8 years ago, but now we are. And so we've learned how to use all the bells and whistles on Instagram to be a little bit more creative with it, and to put a little bit more pizzazz into our messaging, and get it out there in front of more people. When we started doing Twitter, I started doing these trainings 3 years ago, I had 30 followers. And I finally learned how to get more followers and how to not spin my wheels by following people who wouldn't follow me back, how to find the people who were more likely to follow me back. And so now 3 years later, I've got 30,000 followers. Well, actually it's 28,000, but close. So there's ways to do it. So if people are looking for followers, we've got some good tips on how to do that, because we made all the mistakes ourselves a couple years ago, so that now we could give you better advice. But you don't need to have a lot of followers to make an impact. And one of the reasons, especially on Twitter and Threads, is that we have this team of people who go out and they see your tweet because we search for them, because we put the same hashtag in all of our tweets, and we search for that hashtag. And when we find those tweets or posts on other platforms, we amplify them so that they'll get more visibility.
And Deb, we have a few questions coming in. First from Tama.
Thanks, Wendy. I'm just curious, when you amplify it and you build your member or your followers, how do you handle comments? So on Facebook, we have a closed Facebook group, so it's a little bit easier, but on Instagram, we don't. And I don't know if Field Team 6 has volunteers that constantly monitor them, or you just don't even allow comments so things don't get out of control.
We do allow comments, because the comments really help to get more exposure for it. So you need the comments to get more exposure. I mean, we post a video every day. Our founder, Jason Berlin, does a video every day. And some of them are funny, some of them are touching. They're all meant to, encourage people to watch him. But we get some really nasty comments on them. So on Instagram, you can have a list of words that you won't allow. And so any comments that come in that use any of those words in them, won't come through. So we block a lot of comments. But we do want comments, and if they're not really ugly, then we'll let them sit there because other people will respond to them. And so again, that helps publicize that that message even more. On Twitter, I block people constantly because I don't want trolls commenting on my stuff. On the other hand, it helps with the exposure of it. And we train our people not to, I call it, don't feed the trolls. You know, don't respond to them, don't engage with them, because all you're doing is giving them more power. So we ignore them and we go on to the next and just brush them away.
Thank you.
Right. And Raj wanted to know if the BYOP texting is that to the unregistered likely Democratic list also?
Yeah, it is. It's unregistered. And we say likely Democrats because, like I said, there are, you know, Republicans who sneak in, but we have different methods of trying to determine if somebody is a likely Democrat. And there's a number of different things, but one of them might be if they own a Prius. You know, people own Priuses tend to be Democrats. So we use things like that to weed out the other people, so that we're trying to message just to Democrats. And we're not trying to change people's minds. You know, that's not what we're out there doing. You might be able to do that in person, but you can't do that with a tweet. You can't do it with a text. We're trying to get people registered to vote and to care about registering to vote and to care about voting. So that's what we're trying to do, and to get people to join any of our voter registration events and the events that our partners are doing around the country. So we're not trying to change people's minds. It's not worth it.
All righty. And then it looks like Nancy wanted to know, which platform are you getting the most traction on?
I still think Twitter is the biggest platform overall for us. But in the last month, these videos that we're doing, a daily video from Jason, some of them get, 500,000 views, and they just go through the roof. And some of those are negative comments, but that helps more people see it. So Instagram has really been climbing for us, and we've started posting them on TikTok as well. And it's starting to make a little bit more of an impact on TikTok. We don't do a lot of other posting on Twitter. I mean, we don't do a lot of other videos. We post our regular post kind of things on TikTok. But that's a different platform for us. And they all kind of reach a little bit different audience. And when people ask me, where should I be spending my time? What's the best social media platform for me to use? I think the best one for you to use is the one that you like, because that's where you're going to be comfortable. That's where you're going to want to spend your time. We need to be on all of them. We need to be reaching all of these people and getting them registered to vote. So the best place to be is the place that you like to be.
I'm on Twitter quite a lot. And they've kind of shown and proven that, if you punch that outrage part of people, that's what gets the traction. And I don't want to do that.
I don't either.
I feel more like you. I want to get the traction. I want to get a lot of people to see it. I want to get a lot of people to share it. But I also want to, sort of hit their activism. I want to activate their activism rather than their outrage. So, so that's really hard. And I don't feel like, the posts that I do that are, kind of benign or positive, they don't get any traction. But some that I do that are, the last one I did, which was something like, the Republican policy is bedrooms and bathrooms. So it's sort of negative, not negative. But what I wanted to say was my favorite meme that worked for me was Dark Brandon. And I think that hit into something that was a little dark, but not dark. And so I'm just wondering if you've ever sort of studied or, talked to anyone who's an expert on that. As how do you get that sweet spot of actually getting people to interact with your post without going negative?
Okay, that's a really good question. And I do kind of a follow party. Every day I post a message and I schedule it so that it runs sometime between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning so that it'll hit people on the East Coast when they're getting up. And I've been doing this for probably about a year. And I get better results when I post a picture of Biden than when I post a picture of someone else. I get better results when it's a positive message than when it's a negative one. And some days I get, 20,000 impressions on it. The reason I know Twitter is still active is in these follow parties, I'll get, 500 retweets of it. And these are all people who are on Twitter looking for new followers, and they're all Democrats. So there's a lot of people still really active on Twitter looking to find new followers. They're still active and they're still out there. Then besides our regular posts, I have a few people who have done some of what I think are really good graphics that I use in comments. I don't use as regular posts, but I use them as comments. And I see other people borrowing them and using them all over Twitter, which is really fun to see the art that I used, somebody else picking up and using in their post. I don't mind them stealing my stuff because it says Field Team 6 on it. How cool is that? They're getting our message out there because they like the message and they're getting it out there. So I see a lot of positive messaging. Now, one of the things that I do is I look for tweets that are coming from really big accounts like the Midas Brothers or Simon Rosenberg or Jess Craven. Well, she's not really on Twitter anymore, but somebody that sort of caliber. I find a good message and then I quote tweet it with a message referring to whatever they were talking about in their message. And I put a message in it saying, let's get out there and register more Democrats so we can make this happen. And those get a lot of play. It's a positive message. They usually don't say anything in your face negative. I mean, it might say something, negative about mega extremists, or now we like to call them Christian nationalists. But I don't like to just come right down and badmouth anybody to that point. And those are the tweets that do really well. So you can make an impact with positive messaging. All of our ready-made tweets are all positive. We won't badmouth anybody. I mean, we'll kind of badmouth Trump, but not in a negative way. And I don't even like to retweet a post where somebody's swearing in it, because why go there? Why go there if you don't need to? So yeah, I think that you can make an impact being positive, and we're showing that we can do it.
That's great. Thank you. And I think we have time for 2 or 3 more questions. Gail, you had a question?
Yes, hi. I am planning to do a house postcard writing party. And I have a group. I'm reaching out right now, and I'm going to do a training, I believe, next week. So I'll get that
Oh,
started.
great.
Yeah. But I've had a couple people ask about when you are they going to know that we're contacting them from out of state? And does that have as much of an impact as if we were Arizona residents or Georgia residents or?
I suppose they might if they look at the postmark, because the postmark is going to have a postmark on it somewhere.
Yeah.
I haven't read any research on it, but you know, I know that we measure the results from our postcards as well as the other things. And postcards might not do quite as high a percentage as, say, a text message, but they're still really effective. And especially if it's combined with something else, you know, if they're being reached by some other kind of ad, by a text, by a phone, because it's probably not very likely that somebody's only going to get one message coming into their brain. It helps to reinforce it.
Yeah, I like the postcard option because I use colors, and they're going to be able to read it without opening something that looks like it's coming from a stranger. They might be headed to the trash can, but they'll read it, and so
exactly.
So
and
I think
especially because it's handwritten, I think that people are going to at least skim through it. I mean, people aren't just going to throw it away without reading it. But it's the same thing I think about a text message. People don't delete their text message until they at least scan it to see what it's all about. And then maybe they'll press the delete button.
Right.
So I think it's one more way to have an impact, especially if the postcard says something about voting or about that candidate or about registering to vote or, something on the front of it. So it's just reinforcing that whole idea.
Okay,
It
well,
may
thank
not,
you.
yeah, it may not get somebody over the edge all by itself, but I don't think any one thing is going to get somebody over the edge anymore. I think that it's got to be a number of different messages coming into anybody, and postcards are great reinforcements.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let you know how it goes.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, and we have I went on your website, and in your shop you've got some really cool postcards for sale. So
we do,
they're
we've had artists come to us and ask if they could make art for our postcards, which is a really nice position to be in. We wish they'd donate money, but that's another story. That's been really fun. And I don't know, does it get people to read the postcard anymore if it's a really good graphic on the front? I kind of think maybe they would. If it was really ugly, maybe they'd just throw it away. But if it looks good, they'd think, oh, wow, what does this say? And every little bit helps.
Thank you.
Okay, so one logistical question from Victoria, which I will ask, and then Becky, and then we're gonna let you go, Deb. So Victoria had a question about whether it's good to use your real name, and if, is it a problem if you don't?
Yes and no. I have 2 Twitter accounts that are my own accounts, and I also tweet as Field Team 6 and as Jason. And but I have one in my name, and I have one that's called Voting for Truth, and it doesn't have my name associated with it anywhere. And so I always talk in the trainings that if you're at all uncomfortable, because we've all got that person in our lives, whether it's a relative or a work colleague or whatever, that we don't want to just put our political beliefs out there for so many different reasons. You don't need to use your name, especially on Twitter. That's a little bit more impersonal. And it's really easy to not have your name associated with your account on Twitter. The same thing with Instagram. You don't need to use your name on Instagram. Other people have a personal Instagram account, and then they have a separate Instagram that doesn't have their name on it. But maybe they have, the name of their organization, Indivisible ABC, or, whatever. And they post as that entity, or they just come up with some kind of Democrat leaning name, whatever it might be. And I highly recommend doing that. You can make a private account instead of a personal, a public account. The problem is that when you have a private account, only the people that you've approved will see your posts. Nobody else is seeing it. So if you're using social media to help get this positive pro-democracy messaging out there, nobody's going to see it. So it's almost like, why bother? So instead, don't use your name. Nobody needs to know who you are.
Okay, and last question, Becky, you get the floor. Changed your mind, or you got it answered otherwise. Okay. All righty, then I know people probably have more questions, and to get a lot of them answered, I would encourage you to go to one of Deb's trainings. I will, I always do a follow-up email after this meeting.
Great.
So I will have all of Deb's links to all of her trainings in that follow-up email. I'll also include some information in that email about how to get started on each one of these platforms and some other resources that you can use for posting on social media. But I think what I got out of this is that it's not too late to start, even if you don't have social media account right now, that there's content out there already if you don't want to have to invent or reinvent the wheel, and that it really can have an impact on the way people see things. So thank you so much, Deb. Really, you're doing such a great service. Really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us. And I hope we will all see you in one or more of your trainings, which I have attended some, and they're great.
Great. I look forward to it. When you come to the training, make sure that you, unmute yourself and let me know that you're part of this group so that we can say hello. So we like to make it a friendly community, and it's going to take all of us. So let's do it together.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. Good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.
You too, Deb. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.